was born into a family of academics. Both my parents are professors, and so is my older brother. In fact, I used to joke that when I was getting my PhD for my family, that was less of an achievement and more of a requirement to be allowed to stay in the family. In each of them, I see the stereotype that many people have of academics, people who are passionate about their research, driven by their curiosity to understand the world around them. I'm here today because I believe that this classical stereotype is in danger of being replaced. A new career academic is less interested in understanding and explaining a phenomenon and more interested in getting the results they need to tell the sexy story they want to publish. After all, nowadays we live in the academic era of publish or perish. Academic publishing dates all the way back to the 17th century, and so do PhD degrees. But they didn't used to be very common, that is, until they were. Back in the 1950s in the US, there were not enough PhDs to fulfill all permanent academic positions. Nowadays, only 3 to 6% of those that get a PhD actually go on to fulfill these positions. So we've gone from not enough to way too many rather quickly. So safe to say, things got pretty competitive. In order to better compare all these researchers, certain metrics started to be used, in particular how much people publish and how often they're cited. Now, the issue that this raises is that obviously people started to be concerned about publishing in quantity, even if it meant forsaking the quality, sometimes cutting corners, and in the worst cases, actually even committing fraud. Recent studies that were done trying to replicate results in different fields found that, for example, in psychology, only 39% of results were reproducible. And more astonishingly, in cancer biology, only 11%. 11%. Essentially, 1 out of 10 of these cancer papers could actually be trusted to be true. Hope this blows your mind. It blew mine. Of course, these are samples out of the whole of papers from each of these fields, and it's difficult to know how these numbers would translate in other fields. Still, it could potentially mean that a lot of what we call science, potentially half of it, is really more bullshit. Science fiction at best. And given the hundreds of billions that are spent on academic research every year, I'd say that's an impressive amount of money spent on what is essentially fantasy. Now, one of these issues is that this translates to our everyday lives, because in science we're supposed to be able to build on each other's results. And bad papers means we're trying to build on something that was never there to begin with. It slows down progress, and it can't continue. Something needs to change. But one of the issues causing all of this is that while the incentives to publish are very, very clear and very strong, the cost of publishing a bad paper is not yet perceived as being such a big problem. Perhaps it doesn't get cited very much, but what have you got to lose? That mentality needs to change. Now, what would happen if people were to publicly highlight issues that they found in your papers? Maybe then you would be a little bit more self-critical about what you publish in the future. This was what some people had in mind when creating websites that allow researchers to raise issues and comment on papers. The problem with these discussion forums is that they don't really help find great research, which is currently being drowned in a sea of noisy, bad publications. And they don't provide a metric to counteract the current one that keeps pushing people to publish more and more. In order to solve this, I partnered with a fellow academic. We created a platform called Bare Science. What Bare Science does is it allows you to rate papers based on different categories, such as reproducibility or novelty, as well as other important features. And crowdsources this information to turn it into a metric that can actually help researchers find great papers, as well as prevent them from wasting time on what could be essentially dead-end results. What we hoped, the reason why we created Bare Science ultimately, was to try to raise incentive towards quality, scientific facts, and not so much science fiction.